Are you ready, kids?
Hello, it's Employee a Million, and welcome back to SpongeComs. Today's episode is Season 3, Episode 2, or Episode 42 overall, Club SpongeBob and My Pretty Seahorse, both of which originally premiered on Nickelodeon on July 12th, 2002, just a week ahead of the premiere of the brand new Nicktoon, Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. I don't know why they aired the first two episodes of the season in a row within a reasonable amount of time of their Nicktoon premieres, but I don't know. It's just a fun little coincidence to point out. I know it's not ahead of the premiere or anything, but yeah. Club SpongeBob was written by, I've got this out, Walt Dawn and Marco Hare, and this was Walt Dawn's last writing credit for the show, and personally, I don't think it went out on the best note, but it also didn't go out on the worst. Club SpongeBob is an episode that I kind of have a love-hate relationship now, rather than the love relationship I had with it as a kid. I ranked it at 4th place on my least favorite Season 3 episodes, and it was pretty much the only representative from the first half of the season. In a way, there needs to be a weak link, but it's also like, there are really good things in this episode that I really do like. I just find the whole story should be a bit aimless in a way, but there are some good things as I write. There is a nice little fun fact that this episode was actually released on home video before it aired on TV. It was originally released on the DVD Nautical Nonsense and Sponge Buddies on March 12th, 2002, and therefore also released on one of the subsequent videotapes. So it was the first Season 3 episode to be sort of available for your viewing consumption at home. So that's pretty neat. That's something it has over every other Season 3 episode, if I have to be completely honest. And it even got its own little bit of promo art on the back of the case, so yeah. Not many other Season 3 episodes can say that. The main point of contention that starts to come up about Squidward in episodes of SpongeBob at this point is, does he deserve all that is coming to him? Like, is his anger enough to justify exactly what happens to him? And I kind of flip back and forth on this. Sometimes it works, other times, I don't know. It works, but just isn't the right approach to the joke. Like, I think that the misunderstanding stuff with Squidward thinking that because SpongeBob and Patrick's club is so small, figuratively, that he's interpreting that as how exclusive it is. I think that's a fine routine, but the rest of the episode isn't really up to that sort of snuff in terms of like their chemistry, because I don't really feel like SpongeBob and Patrick care about Squidward that much. They care a lot more about the conch and its approach to getting them out of the forest. And that's to do absolutely nothing. And before I talk about the conch, I just want to talk about how this is a very subtle parody of Lord of the Flies in some ways. That's the book about the school children who get stranded on an island and they can't really form a society. It crumbles eventually. And the symbol of authority that Ralph has in the book is a conch shell that he uses to blow into and keep order. And I feel like the SpongeBob writers really liked that idea and just kind of rolled with it. Either that or the conch has since become a symbol for authority in a way. I mean, you can also... I wouldn't really say that the conch that Dr. Eggman uses in Sonic Lost World is a reference to Lord of the Flies, but yeah, I just brought Sonic into this. This ruined everything. No, I like it, but yeah. Magic Conch, I kind of find it a bit annoying in certain respects. Like, I get its function in the episode. I like how it's also kind of a parody of toys like the Magic 8 Ball, in that it doesn't really have solid closed answers. They're all very open-ended questions you're asking it, and then yeah. But a joke later in the episode seems to imply that it is listening, it does know its audience, it does want to start something with Squidward. But that's about where my enthusiasm for the conch shell ends. It just kind of strands them in the forest, and I feel like, in a way, this is meant to be taken as meta humor, because people have speculated that the ending, that they just do nothing and that's how they solve the problem, is that they did nothing and then the episode ended. So, cut to the next episode, they're all okay. And I feel like that's a bit too meta, like it isn't explained in well enough in the episode. And this scene right here is my favorite part of the episode, and I wish more of the episode was like it, with how dark the forest is when there's no light source. I like the color scheme. I like how frightened Squidward is. I like the little light at the end of the tunnel. That is really good. It's my favorite part of the episode, but the rest of it, especially this bit with the lunch, I feel like it is kind of lacking. Like, this scene is just kind of the progenitor to instances in seasons 4, 5, 6, and bits of 7 and 8, where SpongeBob and Patrick just aren't really characters in the way that they usually are. They don't have the same dynamic with Squidward. They're just off in their own little world, and that isn't as funny as them all being adults in the situation. But who am I to, pick on this episode too hard? It does have its fans. It is a well-liked episode. The Kelp Forest, I can't really say is a well-liked location, because, for one thing, its level in Battle for Bikini Bottom is total rubbish. Like, it's so difficult to navigate. Everything is a puzzle, and the puzzles are botched. And the slide at the end, goodness gracious, so many failed attempts. And also the fact that many other episodes are also set in forests later on, and they fail to be as engaging. So this episode looks more softball by comparison, but it also doesn't look as vibrant. It manages to look better in some ways, but yeah, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. The last note I have on this episode is that there is a shot later on where Squidward's arm is miscolored while he's holding the magic conch shell. It's colored yellow like SpongeBob's arm, and they edit that in releases now. They photoshopped his arm to be that aqua color. I've always gone back and forth on whether it's meant to be green or blue, but yeah. The thing is, they already have a shot of Squidward using the magic conch earlier in the episode, so why not recycle that footage instead of going to the effort to Photoshop that miscolored bit? Why not cut that out entirely? I don't know, it's just another little bothersome thing to complain about. I do want to make it clear that even though this is low on my list of season 3 episodes, that it doesn't make it a bad episode at all. It is still kind of saying something about how we tackle these sorts of problems, how we tackle survival skills, our relationship with nature. Maybe not to any major extent. It's all just a set piece for the episode to take place in. But it does really have its own vibe to it. Unlike any other episode in season 3, it just kind of feels very barren and a little joyless, and the pervasive use of the very bleak, backgrounds does kind of help with that, because even though after showing that very lush, interesting, dark part of the forest earlier in the episode, and it does kind of feel awkward going back to just these very bland backgrounds for the rest of the episode. I feel like besides that, this episode does have a certain vibe of its own that no other episode of the show up to this point really has. It kind of feels like a Seinfeld-esque pizza delivery where it's all in one place. It's like the Chinese restaurant episode of Seinfeld. It feels kind of like a bottle episode. But yeah, that excuse doesn't really work because they do still have those opening set pieces and those assets of other characters and locations. So I don't know if it was meant to be like this all in one place sort of ordeal, or if they just really got stuck for ideas. And that little jumping pose from SpongeBob is still used in promotional artwork, though it's in a completely different location. It's just of him jumping outside of his pineapple house joyfully. And I think that's at least a nice little bonus for SpongeBob fans, especially of the astute variety. And I guess that this phrase is very popular, all hail the magic conch. Believe me, if you had the ability to buy a magic conch toy, you would. You would. My Pretty Seahorse was the first episode written by Kent Osborne, and it was co-written by Paul Tippett, so out with Walt Dawn and with Kent Osborne, we're in a bit of a flux period, so to speak. And I really like the idea to open this on a new season. Really love the early morning look in Bikini Bottom. This scene is completely unrelated to the episode, but I don't know, it just works. It helps get you in the mood for SpongeBob planting some flowers. And the funny thing about this episode's title, you want me to say it? You want me to say it? Okay, I'll say it. It might be a reference to My Little Pony, because you see, that was originally called My Pretty Pony when Bonnie Sechel originally created it in 1981, but Hasbro decided to rename it My Little Pony when it became a more marketable thing in a few years. So yeah, that's my useless little spiel on the title. The thing with the spring theme here is that after this little intro, it doesn't slowly fade away. You've still kind of got this sort of more vibrant, more robust color scheme for a good portion into the episode with some of the bits they do in the montage. And I think it looks really good. I think it really sells that this is a brand new season for these characters. And yeah, I haven't got too much to say about this episode other than saying how much I like it. But I will say that Frank Welker is the voice of Mystery in this episode. He's a world-famous actor, mostly focuses on animal noises, and I've heard that he is a legend in that field. And you know what? Mystery doesn't sound too bad. She's got a good voice. It does sound like a horse, and I like this little pun that seahorses underwater in SpongeBob's world are like real horses. They're just called sea horses for no real reason. And this sort of joke, I think, really played into the sea bear gags that they did later this season. And I really like the old-timey traditional idea for this episode that SpongeBob is going on the story about a man and his horse, a man and his pet, and going through all the different mishaps that can come of that, all the different ways they express their friendship, and Okay, I just have to stop for a minute. I really love this joke. One of my very favorites in the whole show. Just absolutely no reason for him to have a mustache here, but he does have it. It makes a fairly, average scene of SpongeBob just all that much funnier without being too edgy or in your face about it. It's just simple, gives you a quick little giggle, and that's what I like about SpongeBob most of all. And I see that Mystery is drawing SpongeBob like one of her French girls right there. The wiki says that's a Titanic reference, but I don't know. Titanic didn't invent that. So anyway, the whole bit about SpongeBob going through this sort of story. SpongeBob has had plenty of pets over the years. Like, even up to this point, it's kind of started to become a once a season thing because he had Larry and the dog and Jerry and Dumped, and even before then, he had the wild jellyfish and jellyfish jam. So it was starting to become a game of what sort of animal do we give SpongeBob next? And what do you know, next time they do some sort of smelly animal, next they give him a whole, load of jellyfish swarming him. Then they do something else, and then they do something else. I feel like that's kind of a fun little once a season quirk that they have. And yeah, Scooter, they could be doing so much better with you this season. You are so dumb. Maybe this is why you aren't referenced that much. You put a coin up of a seahorse's you-know-where. So yeah, as I was saying, this was Kent Osborne's first episode, and looking over his resume, I don't know, it melts into SpongeBob, I'll say. I kind of feel like this episode is well regarded and well known for having plenty of running gags, because you've got that bit of Squidward falling off his bike and exploding like in Jellyfish, and then the same thing happens to Scooter. So, yeah, did it so nice they did it twice. And then you've got Patrick having a board on his head for no reason, the stuff with the onions that materialize under Squidward randomly. It's just a very funny episode all around, and yeah, they do a good job of making sure that these jokes build on top of each other. And of course, they just had to sneak in a joke about how the kitchen's no place for a live horse. That is pretty dark, but I do like it all the same. Again, there isn't really much I can really look into and tell you about this episode, because I've already covered most of the plot, and it's just about, how good the gags are. This is a very gag heavy episode, but it's still got a really good story to go with it. Something great about Squidward here is that he's just a total third wheel to SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs. And that's how I kind of feel he is in the dynamic usually when the episode isn't about him, but he's still a great side character to all this madness. And that quote about him kind of talking about what the life of an employee at a fast food restaurant is, that was in newspapers discussing how clever SpongeBob's writing was at the time. Not that it can't still be clever later on, but yeah, I've always thought of that episode ever since I saw it in an old newspaper, and how it got adults and parents thinking about the appeal of this show and how it really captured multiple generations flawlessly. Club SpongeBob might have some fun little, you know, airing trivia in that it had previously been on DVD, but My Pretty Seahorse was the 100th episode to premiere on Nick. It doesn't make it the 100th episode in production order, but it was the 100th individual SpongeBob story to be aired in the order that Nick randomly chose based on whatever day of the week it was. So yeah, the episode starts to get really sappy here and talk about feelings, and yeah, that's not really what you think of when you think of like dudes and their horses. So I appreciate them injecting some emotion into this and talking about Mr. Krabs' own friend, and knowing that he had a friendship with Plankton for most of his childhood now. I'm wondering if I'm wondering if Mr. Krabs was being metaphorical about this. Maybe not, but I do like to imagine Mr. Krabs like giving a soda vendor Plankton just for a soda. I don't know. He got a bit smarter in it later in his childhood. He got the old string out so he could trick the vending machine system, as can be seen in Krusty Krab training video. So he did get smarter over time, smarter with his money. The great thing about Patrick in this episode is that even though he is treated like a complete animal here, just kind of this really dumb companion to SpongeBob, like he buries his sweater in the sand and then he nails something to his head, and then SpongeBob yells at him like he's a stupid dumb animal. It's all still really good, really quick, really snappy, and it doesn't make Patrick too much of a jerk or too much of a complete moron. And perhaps one of my other favorite bits of this episode, aside from the mustache bit, is that it just ends for no reason with 10 seconds of Patrick trying to walk into a hat store from earlier in the episode and just kind of banging his head into it. Like, that is easily like the silliest, most random way to end the episode after all the emotion that was brought out of SpongeBob and Krabs. It's about on par with a newspaper comic strip, but who cares? They deserve to just end on a sweet note, even if the episode was already running over time. Like, it really shows that they could make lemonade out of lemons. You gotta increase the runtime a bit, just make an iconic bit with Patrick, simple as. My Pretty Seahorse is a really good episode, a bit underrated, and I suggest you give it a rewatch. So that was Club SpongeBob and My Pretty Seahorse. My question of the week for you last week is, what would you think about an episode without SpongeBob? Jack McGinn thought it would be interesting, that it could have potential. Dashell Rose said that she would love to see an episode focusing more on Mr. Krabs and Plankton's backstory without SpongeBob in it, like Friend or Foe. Rebel Friend said, I think SpongeBob has a strong enough supporting cast, so they should go with it. And Super Seal said, it would be fine if there was an episode without SpongeBob, as there were other character-centric episodes like Patrick Man. And he makes a good point. They have done it before, just not to the what if SpongeBob was gone extent. My question of the week for you this week is, who is your favorite pet of SpongeBob's? Mine is obviously Mystery, because I just like this episode so much. But yeah, there are plenty of different pets to choose from. You could technically go with Patrick if you wanted. And next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about inhibitions again, sort of desires, to kick someone's butt in the bully and the desire for a delicious mouth-watering Krabby Patty in just one bite. Goodbye for now.